From a dynasty where members were forced to take on a family name, to a cult that promises its followers a second life, Roblox has seen communities that went far beyond simple roleplay. These groups, while often small and obscure, have left behind unsettling legacies that continue to fascinate and disturb players. And today, we'll be looking into some of them, starting off with the group built on loyalty to a self-declared patriarch, the Hilarium Dynasty. The group began in 2017 with a player known as Albert Hilarium, better known off Roblox as Brandon, who first embedded himself in the Roblox SCP community. There, he formed what he called the Hilarium Dynasty, a pseudo-family structure where members were required to take on his surname and be placed into a family tree, with Albert as its patriarch. At first, it looked like eccentric roleplay, but it would soon be revealed as something much more troubling. Allegations from former members describe how Brandon demanded loyalty across all his groups, with high-ranking players being pressured into joining his other groups as well, forbidden from being part of any rival communities, and even denied the right to leave without his approval. Those who tried to leave were often branded as traitors, exiled, or shamed publicly. In one case, when a member resigned due to schoolwork, Brandon dismissed it as a common excuse, accusing them of betraying Hilarium rather than acknowledging their real-life priorities. But what made the Hilarium Dynasty truly disturbing were the allegations about Brandon's behavior behind closed doors. Screenshots and chat logs compiled across multiple documents, which showed Brandon harassing younger members, making inappropriate remarks, and even manipulating them in both group settings and private DMs. These accounts painted a picture of a leader who crossed the line from roleplay into exploitation, using the pretense of the dynasty to enforce loyalty while isolating those who questioned him. Over time, this pattern of manipulation expanded beyond the dynasty itself. After leaving the SCP community, he moved into nation roleplays and later founded the Hilarion Regime, modeled after Nazi Germany, with the same cult-like structure appearing again. Loyalty demanded at all costs, minors placed under his control, and a cycle of intimidation, exploitation, and manipulation. But over time, investigations and mass defections had fractured his empire, but Brandon himself never stopped. Whenever a kingdom collapsed, he resurfaced under a new banner, dragging the same abusive dynamics into fresh communities. Even after his earlier groups collapsed, Brandon's attempts to rebuild never stopped. After being forced out of his brother's home and claiming he was left with nothing, he returned to the only thing he had ever known: Roblox. Before we continue with the rest of the video, I just wanted to say that my goal is to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of this month, and it would help a lot if you could subscribe. Brandon's groups may have collapsed time and time again, but they never really disappear. Even if his influence is no longer as large as it once was, he never truly left. He still lingers on Roblox, serving as a reminder that while the Hilarium Dynasty may have fallen, Albert Hilarium himself has never truly gone away. But while the Hilarium Dynasty revolved around the control of one individual, the next groups took their cues from real-world extremist movements, openly embracing Nazi themes on Roblox. One of the most notorious examples of this was a group called Patriot Imperium. The Patriot Imperium was founded in 2018 as a raiding faction before evolving into a more organized and extremist-aligned group. Over time, it shifted from being a simple war group into something more concerning, openly adopting themes and iconography. This group went by many different aliases, which made it difficult to track, and at one point even aligned itself with a political faction on Roblox before eventually being expelled from it. But what made Patriot Imperium particularly concerning was its inspiration. The group borrowed heavily from the writings of James Mason, an extremist writer whose book Siege later influenced real-world organizations. That text encouraged disruption and chaos as a way to push authoritarian politics, and was later associated with dangerous groups like the Atomwaffen Division in 2015. The Atomwaffen Division became notorious for promoting chaos and violence in the US, and the Patriot Imperium copied some of that look and mindset. On Roblox, that meant trying to cause as much disruption as possible. They flooded, spammed hateful messages, exploited, and targeted games, where they then tried to recruit new players into their group through these raids. Ultimately, the Patriot Imperium fell apart from the inside after a member exposed their own leader, sharing his identity publicly, which inevitably divided the group, causing their activities to die down. But it didn't end there, because even after the collapse, some figures tried to carry on the group's identity in smaller ways. One of the more prominent voices openly led to what was left of the Patriot Imperium, recruiting new members publicly and even experimenting with projects tied to Roblox. In the end, the group's trail becomes harder to follow. What remains is uncertain. Some signs suggest lingering activity, while others point to complete silence. Whether or not the Patriot Imperium truly still exists on Roblox Roblox is left unclear. But even if groups like the Patriot Imperium have faded into uncertainty, they weren't the only ones to stir controversy on Roblox. And recently, another name began to spread across the platform, not as an extremist movement, but as a parody that unexpectedly turned into something more, and a cult that was never meant to exist: Spawnism. However, it didn't begin with secret groups. Instead, it started off in a game, Forsaken, originally developed under the name Damnation before being changed to comply with Roblox's TOS, was released in December of 2024. Forsaken was a horror experience where players would take on the role of either a survivor tasked with escaping by repairing generators, or a killer hunting them down within a set amount of time. In Forsaken, each survivor carried their own lore that fleshed out the world beyond the matches themselves. One character in particular, 2x, stood out: a survivor who worshipped and sacrificed everything for a false god, and after being forsaken, said to have been granted a second life by a figure known as the Spectre. Within the game, a lore was tied directly to the Spawn Cult, a fictional group that worshipped quote-unquote the Spawn in exchange for promises of resurrection. But what was meant as in-game lore didn't stay confined to Forsaken. Over time, some players began taking the Spawn Cult seriously, carrying its ideas outside the game and reshaping it into something new. And while many saw it as harmless, others quickly realized it could be twisted into something more, a way to gain influence, loyalty, and control. And what started as just a backstory in Forsaken has now turned into a living movement: Spawnism. When Spawnism first drifted outside Forsaken, it didn't immediately resemble a religious group, but certain figures quickly noticed how easily players clung to the idea. They positioned themselves as prophets of the truth, twisting the lore to elevate their own status. What had started as a backstory for a game character was now reshaped into a structure of influence, one that granted a few individuals power while leaving others vulnerable to manipulation. Among the figures who rose to power within Spawnism, none left a bigger mark than a player known as Chesbull. He wasn't the one who invented the idea, but he was the one who learned how to weaponize it. To his followers, he presented himself as a prophet, someone chosen to spread the truth of the Spawn God. But in reality, his actions told a much darker story. In an interview by Roblox YouTuber Guamgo, Chesbull admitted outright that it wasn't real. When pressed on whether he actually believed in Spawnism, he responded, "Spawnism was simply a chance I took, an opportunity. I do not believe in Spawnism, even in the slightest." To him, it was never about belief, it was about control. He bragged about twisting the narrative, about bending people's willingness to believe into a tool for manipulation. This became his stage, a way to test how far he could push, how deeply he could control those who believed in something that was never real to begin with. Yet what he did went beyond the boundaries of what's right. Followers of Spawnism found themselves manipulated, pressured, and coerced, drawn into situations that tested their obedience and loyalty, showing just how far a false belief could be leveraged to manipulate vulnerable players. Beyond the game, Chesbull instructed followers to perform so-called rituals that went far beyond harmless roleplay. Some of these were portrayed as tests, ways to prove loyalty and gain access to his Discord server, effectively entering into the group itself. The group's followers, many of which are young, were pressured to complete rituals and tests of loyalty, while some were even encouraged to engage in harmful behaviors. In reality, these acts caused significant emotional strain and anxiety. Even the creators of Forsaken were quick to clarify the distinction between the game and reality, as in an official statement, they made it clear that the in-game Spawn Cult is entirely fictional and should not be taken seriously. Spawnism is not real. We do not support you if you believe this, and you should seek help immediately. But for some, the damage had already been done, a reminder of how fragile the line between fiction and reality can be. Spawnism never fully died, but its grip on the community weakened over time, and as anti-Spawn groups formed and YouTubers released videos exposing its dangers, the group's influence gradually faded. A video also began circulating featuring a young person being confronted by their father, with some even claiming that the person in the video was none other than Chesbull, while others were quick to argue, stating that it was simply another scapegoat used to deflect blame. It is speculated that the figure in the video, known online as Oscar, was not Chesbull at all, but simply someone the community chose to mock and scapegoat, which only deepened the uncertainty, blurring the line between truth and rumor. What was never in doubt, however, were the experiences of those caught in Spawnism's orbit. Across Twitter, threads and shared screenshots painted a picture of victims who were manipulated and pressured into behavior they later regretted. While Spawnism has started to fade, it remains a cautionary tale for Roblox and online culture as a whole, proof that even something born as a game can leave very real scars. However, if Spawnism showed how a fictional story could spiral into real belief, then the 764 cult proved how real-world extremism could infiltrate Roblox itself. The 764 cult was founded in 2021 by a teenager in Texas, naming it after a local zip code. This group adopted extremist views drawing from neo-Nazi and occult ideologies, and was formally classified by US authorities as an extremist organization network. While this cult originated outside of Roblox, its presence quickly spread into online platforms where younger audiences gather, making Roblox one of the many digital spaces they attempted to exploit. With millions of kids logging on daily, Roblox offered something the cult wanted: easy access to a young, curious audience. Unlike other platforms, Roblox's open-ended games and communities made it easy to disguise messages or groups as simple roleplay, which only added to the risk. The 764 group became known for its strange symbolism and secrecy, while much of its activity was centered on Discord and other social platforms. What made it especially dangerous on Roblox was how subtle it could appear. However, their presence wasn't always obvious. At first glance, 764 and its affiliated games appear to be just another edgy roleplay community, but hidden within them were references to the group's extremist and occult-inspired ideology. This made the group especially dangerous online, since children who joined out of curiosity often didn't fully understand what they were seeing, and just being exposed to it could push them to explore more of the ideology. Roblox did step in to ban many of the reported groups and games, but the open nature of the platform made moderation difficult. Beyond Roblox, this group gained notoriety, with researchers and law groups warning parents about how the 764 cult used spaces like Roblox and Discord to spread its name. The fact that a real-world extremist movement could bleed into what many consider a kids game showed the risks of unmonitored online interaction, and the reality of the group was darker than most knew, as investigators later uncovered that members were pressured into disturbing rituals, some of which were shared online. These acts were designed to leave a permanent mark on the participants, whether through recordings or scars, ensuring that they felt trapped in the group, forced to prove loyalty, and in the most extreme cases, pushed them toward irreversible decisions. This shows just how manipulative the group truly was, targeting younger, impressionable people and manipulating them through fear and secrecy. And when those same tactics bled into Roblox, a platform with millions of kids, it showed just how dangerous this group could be. Although 764 itself has been heavily cracked down on, with its leaders being arrested and its influence disrupted, the network's presence continues to echo through online spaces, an eerie reminder that even platforms built for play can be twisted into tools for extremism.